Commando, paratrooper, black bag operative, and Nazi general, Otto Skorzeny was a man well regarded at the high table of Hitler's Germany. Rising to be Hitler's favorite commando, strangely, so few even know his name. Welcome to Bizarre History. Today we'll uncover the untold story of one of the deadliest SS generals during Nazi Germany. The Vienna-born Skorzeny cut a distinct figure. He was 6'4" and around 18 stone, an engineering student who loved to fence and soon acquired a legendary facial scarring from his fencing travails. He was working as a civil engineer when the war broke out and was initially frustrated at no entry point to the Wehrmacht. He was too old and tall for the Luftwaffe, despite his avid support and having joined the Austrian Nazi Party and their security SA. The SS was his entry point to the German Nazi Party, and he soon saw major combat, receiving a Courage Under Fire distinction during a 1942 attempt to siege Moscow. Recovering from a near-fatal war wound after, Skorzeny began to research and develop a fascination with specialist operations. Drawing up his own ideas and using his status as a recognized soldier, Skorzeny took his ideas and plans to higher-ups. One general, Schellenberg, was so taken by his vision, Skorzeny was soon made head of the Sonderverband ZBV Friedenthal. That would be the Specialist Ops Division of the SS, and so began a historic command career. Despite having won over higher-ups in the Nazi command, Otto Skorzeny was yet to be proven in his special ops performance. In 1943, Operation Francois was a far-reaching operation to attempt to make Nazi converts of nomads in Iran. The initial idea of the plan was to work the Khashoggi people, in particular the tribal elders, to make allegiance with the Nazis and provide another force against the Allies. The secondary objective was for Skorzeny's men to cause any disruption they could to this supply line focal point of Iran between the Allies and Russia. Otto Skorzeny and his commando parachuted into the north of Iran with packs of gold for the locals and packs of explosives for supply lines. It was not a success. The German reflection of the mission was that converts were not to be made in Iran, with any gold given to the native population soon sold on to the British forces they knew. This is about as close to a Bondesque 60s spy film operation that Skorzeny was a part of. Special ops were carried out with a degree of subtlety, with an under-the-cover-of-night ethos. If you're carrying out a top-secret special mission, you want operatives who can disguise and hide themselves well. Apparently for this mission, not only was the 6'4", 18-stone facially scarred man leading the charge, he was leading it in a glider aircraft. Astonishingly, the lack of subtlety is only half the tale. Operation Oak was Hitler's big attempt to make a big showing towards a perceived ally. The entire purpose was to find and free the imprisoned and former leader of Italy, Benito Mussolini. Then in hiding and in custody being moved from location to location, Mussolini was first found by the Nazis in a villa on a small island near Sardinia. Flying a plane over for photographic purposes only earned Skorzeny and his men being shot down by Allied anti-aircraft gun. Later, fittingly being rescued at sea by Italian naval vessels, they were able to recover and restart the mission. The actual rescue of Mussolini took place in a relatively remote location of an old hotel in the Gran Sasso mountain in central Italy. The operation was not only a success in freeing the deposed dictator, but most impressively for Germany and in Hitler's eyes, not one person was killed, no blood was spilled. This operation in particular is supposed to be the sealing of the deal for Hitler's admiration of Skorzeny. He was rewarded the Knight's Cross, regarded as Hitler's favorite commando, and soon propagandized as the most dangerous man in Europe. Despite a reputation earned from appeasing Nazi war and Holocaust efforts, Hungarian regent Miklos Horthy had managed to get on the wrong side of Hitler. He'd done it on two fronts. One, whilst admitting openly of his own anti-Semitic views, he had purposely avoided turning over Hungarian Jews to the German authorities. Whether this was to keep in good stead with the watching Allies or out of a sense of higher calling is unclear. Yet Horthy also started back-channel secret negotiations with the Allies in recognition that the Axis powers could lose the war. Skorzeny assembled his squad of men and stormed the presidential palace in Budapest. Their dealing with Horthy was not with the man himself, but with his son. While Skorzeny drove tanks up to the Castle Hill gate on orders to remove Horthy from power, this was only after his son had been captured, beaten, kidnapped, and taken to the Mauthausen concentration camp. Facing nothing but the reality his country, life, and son could all be lost, Horthy signed on the dotted line that the Nazis wanted. His previously announced armistice with Russia was void, and he signed that the Arrow Cross and its leader were now in charge. Horthy had been made, at gunpoint no less, to sign away the fate of the Hungarian Jewish people he'd spent the whole time as premier avoiding. In just over a month, over 250,000 Hungarian Jews were deported to be sent to the gas chambers. In the months following, the Arrow Cross death squads killed tens of thousands of Hungarian Jews themselves. The Nazi occupation of Hungary was described as bloodless, but tragically not for all. The operation was a key implementation of one of the World War II's biggest battles, the Battle of the Bulge. Skorzeny and his commandos were handed the special assignment of taking all important bridges along the River Meuse during the battle. The mission involved infiltration, in this case using the most conveniently fluent English speakers within the ZBV to go undercover in American uniforms and sabotage Allied camps. Small but effective measures were taken by the infiltrators. The turning of road signs, dispatching faults or entirely fictional orders, and destroying communication wires were all part of the operation. Something of a short-lived kamikaze effort, the Allies soon picked up on the mayhem being caused and sensed they were victims of being infiltrated. Many men found themselves being shot in the wake of the Americans realizing false identity was easily found in the correct grilling of American pop culture. The operation was ultimately unsuccessful, though the panic and chaos it delivered should not be overlooked. In the event of capture, the Skorzeny's men had the shared false alibi of them being part of an assassination attempt on Eisenhower in Paris. This consequently meant Eisenhower was under guarded house arrest as soon as the information had traveled. Life after wartime for Skorzeny was no less action-packed and eventful than his Nazi commando years. Having narrowly avoided prosecution for war crimes, his life became a series of moving from place to place, and most significantly, moving from allegiance to allegiance. A person of interest in the lens of Nazi hunters, having moved through Bavaria and Salzburg, the man granted denazification by the German courts was soon in Spain. There he managed to begin the neo-Nazi group SEDADE before his work led him to a remarkable chapter in Argentina. Otto Skorzeny was instrumental in the development of Nazi populations coming over to Argentina and surviving. This was far from all, though. Most notably, he served as a military advisor to Juan Perón, a known and established protector of Nazi criminals. As well as this official capacity within the ranks of the Perón administration, Skorzeny was a noted bodyguard of Eva Perón. To this day, there is talk of an affair between the two. Ever traveling, the ex-commando was known for his purchase of property in Ireland. The farm was something he could only approach on temporary visas, as the British authorities had no intention of his presence or whereabouts being on their turf. Despite the consternation this brought from Skorzeny, the property remained his to the fascination of locals and the British media. The rumor mill was driven into action, and soon whispers began the property was used as a hideout for Nazi stowaways. Yet, in some cosmic absurdity, Skorzeny would soon be under the employ of, well, the Israelis. It is documented that in 1962, Skorzeny was approached by a couple when in a bar in Madrid with his wife. Ultimately, as the night progressed, he realized he was being taped by intelligence. Having rumbled the couple for the Mossad agents they were, a negotiation took place. Skorzeny wanted to be removed from the famed Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal's list. in exchange for the ex-Nazis sabotaging the work of other ex-Nazis in Egypt. An agreement was made. Even if the Mossad lied to Skorzeny over his removal from the list, yet Skorzeny filled his end of the bargain and then some. Identifying and coercing all Nazis working on the rocket program in Egypt, as well as the companies cooperating, Skorzeny finished the job in full with the assassination of lead scientist ex-Nazi Heinz Krug. Yet it was before the mission that the most remarkable of moments took place. An individual from Vienna whose entire family had been taken to the gas chambers took the former commando to the Holocaust Museum in Yad Vashem. Skorzeny was observed and described as respectful. From Hitler's favorite mercenary to taking out Nazis and observing respect in a Holocaust museum. Is this as close an attempt at redemption a Nazi war criminal can get? Or is it just another soulless shift from a dead-eyed hired hand? Thanks for watching Bizarre History. Check out our other war-related videos up on your screen. See you next time.